Okay, Dr. Mindy Pelz here, and I am incredibly excited to share the next topic with you, the menopause reset. This is actually a journey that I've personally been on for the last 10 years. And the idea behind the menopause reset really came out of me working to fix my own problems through menopause and really working with my own lifestyle. But then I also turned around and implemented some very specific strategies into my patients' lives that made a huge difference. And I actually have written all of this in a book. It will be out, depending on when you're watching this, it'll be out in April of 2020, and you can read all the fine detail. But what I really wanted to do today was bring to you the highlights of how you go about helping a woman through her menopause journey. And let me start off with saying this because my menopause journey really was turbulent and leading, just to give you guys some perspective. I know that we have all different types of practitioners, all different ages in listening to this webinar. But really, what happened to me is happening to so many women. So when I turned 40, I was at the best shape of my life. And at that time, it really, for me, the best shape meant that I was eating well and I was doing some mild detoxing. I was exercising. I was getting chiropractic care. Like, I thought I was living this incredibly healthy lifestyle. And for me at that time, it really was about, I always laugh that it was like about me fitting into my skinny jeans. Like, I wanted to feel good in my clothes. I wanted a number on the scale to be good. And that was sort of my goal for my health at 40. And what happened at 43, and one of the reasons I love this picture here of me and my family was this is literally like me on my 43rd birthday. And this was the beginning of a downward spiral for my health. So from 40 to 43, I felt amazing. My lifestyle was working for me. But at 43, all of a sudden, I started to experience things like insomnia. I was an incredible sleeper leading up to this. Any little noise would wake me up. It was so bad that somebody could be eating, dinner downstairs or eating dessert downstairs, and I was upstairs in my bedroom, and I could hear every single noise would wake me up. I started getting hot flashes. I started getting depression and anxiety. My energy tanked. All the old tricks I had to lose weight, where all of a sudden I noticed that I was just gaining more weight, especially around the midsection. And it was fairly quickly that I started to notice that my lifestyle was no longer working for me, that something had to change. And this is happening again to so many women, which is why I'm bringing this to you, because we have an opportunity to really make a strong difference for these women by helping them course correct. But it really comes to a place where we have to understand with the menopause journey that this journey is not just an overnight experience. This is not something that's just happening like one day a woman's fine and the next day she's not. The menopause journey is actually a 10 to 15-year process. And I always say, like, I wish somebody had like tapped me on my shoulder at 40 and said, "Hey, congrats, you're doing great at 40, but I want you to understand that the next decade, the next 15 years, your hormones are going to start to decline. And as those hormones decline, you're going to find that things are going to show up for you that need to be corrected." So I really want to, as I map out these steps for you, I want to encourage you to help women see this. And because what it does for us that have gone through it is it normalizes a bit the situation. And it helps us get out of this place of just trying to cure the symptoms, but it helps us understand, oh, okay, I'm in my 40s now. My hormones are declining. My body, one of the bigger things for me was that I didn't realize that my ovaries were shutting down. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what's happening. Your hormones or your ovaries are shutting down, but other organs are going to have to pick up the slack, like your adrenal glands. are going to have to pick up the slack and take over. So I wish somebody had given me that perspective in my early 40s so I could have been better prepared for what was happening to me. And I really want to encourage you to tell women in their early 40s that let's make some changes now so that your experience through menopause can be really good. And if you're dealing with postmenopausal women, I think it's really important to say you're experiencing these symptoms because nobody tapped you on the shoulder and said, this is a 10 to 15 year process. Your hormones are declining and other organs are going to take over. This is such an important message to get across to women that are either perimenopause, in the thick of it, or postmenopausal. This will give them so much comfort to know that they're not going crazy, because I literally thought at times I was going crazy. So what I always tell my menopausal women is that menopause is a mirror. So you really want to, anything that you might have not dealt with in your 20s and 30s, unfortunately, as these hormones decline, you're going to have to deal with this now. And I think that's also a great way for us to help our patients get motivated, because I deal with a lot of perimenopause and menopause women that are Spartan racers, or they are, they look really beautiful and are in great shape. But what these women, or they're career women, like a lot of women hit 40 and they're like, I've got life under control and life is thriving. Like the things that didn't really work for us maybe in our 20s because we're still trying to discover ourselves. In our 30s, we're having babies. A lot of women are. But in the 40s, you hit 40 and there's this moment where you feel like, okay, I'm in a sweet spot of life. But this is really a time that we got away with are going to reveal themselves. So I tell my menopausal women, it's menopause is a mirror. There are 3 things that I want you to realize. 1, imbalances are going to reveal themselves. So we'll talk about what those imbalances are. 2, your old strategies may not work. Like this is especially true with the over-exerciser. That was me. I was a marathon runner when I hit 40. And here I am at 50 to tell you that I'm leaning more into yoga and activities that are more nourishing of my adrenal glands, because my adrenals are working so hard now that I know that my ovaries are not doing the job and the adrenals have to pick up that slack. So old strategies may not work for you. And then I think the third and most important thing that we have to get across to this group of women is that if you do not make a course correction when you go through the menopause experience, you are setting yourself up for disease. And that is incredibly important because the most hormonal, we'll talk about this in a moment, but so many hormonal problems and cardiovascular issues happen for a woman so this is the sweet spot we can really help women with so that we can make sure that they don't set themselves up for disease later. So having said all of that, I tell women that there are 4 hormones that are dramatically declining for you in your 40s. And if you're dealing with a woman who's postmenopausal, these hormones may have already tanked. And those 4 hormones are what you see here. It's estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and then I'm going to throw DHEA in there because I really see a strong reduction in DHEA for women. Now, each one of these hormones does something different. Let's start with DHEA for a moment. If you're not aware, DHEA is the precursor to 3 major hormones. It is the precursor to cortisol. It's the precursor to progesterone and the precursor to testosterone. So if the menopausal woman has been under a tremendous amount of stress, you guys know this, our bodies always prioritize stress over anything else. So if our body thinks it's in a crisis, it will divert that DHEA, the amounts of DHEA you have inside of you, to making cortisol. And all it will do is keep making cortisol over and over and over again. So this will cause the menopausal woman to be extremely low in progesterone and testosterone. So because DHEA also makes progesterone and it also makes testosterone. So, one of the things that you can start to help the menopausal woman understand is that she's not going crazy. It's that her hormones are declining, and then help her see which hormones are declining. So, progesterone, let's start there. Progesterone is our calming hormone, it is what allows our uterine lining to shed. It also is what keeps estrogen in check. So the menopausal woman who is feeling anxious, who is spotting all the time, may have an unusually low progesterone. Now, progesterone's already going low, so we already know that is an issue, but it may be even lower because she has been in such a stressed out state that her DHEA's levels are low. So her progesterone is going to be lower than normal. Testosterone. Testosterone is, as you guys probably know, is libido. It's also your drive to work out. It's your building muscle. So this was one of the hormones that was incredibly low for me. That just shocked me. And because I'm an athlete, and I started to notice that I just did not desire working out anymore. It's like I didn't crave working out like I did in my younger years. Well, that can be because of low testosterone. And I just want to point out that one of my favorite supplements for raising testosterone that Systemic has come out with is M Plus. And M Plus was like a gift to me when I realized my testosterone was low. It really helped to bring my testosterone back up. So I forgot to put a slide in there. I want you guys to know that, because I laughed a couple of years ago. I thought, how strange is it that my favorite systemic supplement is technically a male supplement, but it will bring those testosterone levels up. And then estrogen also is declining, and it's important for women to understand that there are good estrogens and bad estrogens. But when the good estrogen declines, this is, we start looking in the mirror and we look a little more wrinkled, our hair's a little flatter, mucous membranes are a lot drier. So a lot of women will find when their good estrogen is low that sex is painful. I hear this all the time from women. I hear, the skin. This is when women are, if we don't educate them, are going towards things like Botox and fillers to try to plump that skin up. It'll make the hair start to flatten out. That's not really exciting for a lot of menopausal women. So helping her see that these symptoms she's experiencing is normal with the decline. And if she follows these 5 lifestyle steps that I'm going to teach you here in a moment, that she really has more control than perhaps she's been led on to believe. Please understand, I'm saying this as a menopausal woman, that it is so important for her to have some strategies that can put her in control. Because my experience was that everybody just sort of looked at me, everything from my friends who had gone through that experience to doctors who I had polled about I have a good friend who's an OB, and I asked her, what do you do for this? And everybody sort of has this general thought, which is just buck up and do it. Menopause sucks. If you don't want it to suck, get yourself on medication. But we can be that beacon of light to say, yeah, it's hard, and therefore you need to change your lifestyle to meet these declining hormones. So I can't tell you how helpful that can be for the menopausal woman to hear. So know that for me personally, I really love having some definitive ways to show a woman which hormones are low. And so I'm a huge fan of functional medicine testing. And the test that I use on all of my menopausal women is the Dutch test. And if you're not familiar with the Dutch test, For starters, they have so many great resources that you can plug into. So it's through Precision Analytics. You can go to their website, you can get an account, and you can do what I did. You can just do self-study there, just a lot like how Systemic Formulas does it with us. You can go and order one. They give you a free test for yourself, and they do have women and men that you can do a test for both, and you can see what your hormones are. And then you can do all their webinars, and you can learn quite a bit on how to read this test. There is so much information on this test that not only gives women an aha, but will help you customize your supplements, systemic supplements specifically. It'll also help them understand which lifestyle pieces they need to work on. So there's a couple of general ideas that I tell people with the Dutch test that I love. So it'll tell you the three sex hormones, the top three sex hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Very helpful. It'll tell a woman if she's in the normal postmenopausal range or not. Remember, testosterone is not meant to necessarily tank in the menopausal woman, so you can really dial in on testosterone and see what's going on there. It will tell you her DHEA levels. It will tell you her adrenal levels. It'll tell you melatonin, if melatonin is an issue. It tells you her estrogen metabolites. So does she have bad estrogens that need to be handled? I've had some of these tests show up where the estrogen, the really harmful, toxic estrogen metabolites shows up. And I have to really have a heart-to-heart with that woman and say, if you don't do something soon, you're going to build breast cancer or ovarian cancer. And that can be motivating for women. It'll tell me if she's a good methylator. So I've had some cases where people are really poor methylators. Women are really poor methylators. So I'll megadose with Moors so that and I'll give her a tool for it so she can know that, hey, guess what? You're not a great methylator, but Moors is going to be that supplement that's going to help you methylate better. It's going to help you detox better. So it gives her a tool. And I've had, it'll tell me melatonin levels, DHEA levels. Like, it is a powerful test. I always say that I feel a little bit like I'm giving like an astrology reading when I give the Dutch test, because I can take any woman, I could know nothing about her health history, and I could tell her what she's experiencing based off the hormonal balance that I'm seeing in the Dutch test. So know that that is an incredible tool if you want to dive into really helping this woman. And then it really helps you customize which of the supplements she needs from Systemic Formulas. So now, there are some things that are classic with these declining hormones. So there are some symptoms that you're going to want to bring to her attention. And again, it's really helpful when you're seeing declining hormones and you're seeing the symptoms that appear. It's really helpful for her to know that things like weight gain and insomnia and memory loss, that these are normal to a woman going through the menopause experience. And I can't emphasize this enough, because those of us that have been going through this experience, think we're going crazy. And it is so helpful when somebody says, I understand that you're holding on to weight, not because you're eating the wrong things or you're eating too much, but because your hormones are out of balance. I understand that you're not sleeping, not because your life is stressful, but because I can see that your melatonin levels are low. I get that you're losing memory, not because you're aging and you're turning into your mother or your grandmother, but because you have a high toxic load. So you really want to, like I've said before, meet her where she's at and help her see that these declining hormones are a natural part of the menopause experience, and that there's a lot she can do for it. But if you can just acknowledge to her that this is what the body's going through, that will help her tremendously. Then the second thing that I find will really help her get motivated and implement what you're going to recommend is that she needs to understand that there are certain diseases that are coming down the pipeline that if she doesn't work to bring these hormones up to at least a postmenopausal status, she is going to be more at risk of things like breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And she's going to be at more of a risk of things like heart disease and Alzheimer's. So you can see, like here on this next slide, what I do is I map out for her what she is going to be experiencing. That declining hormones are absolutely relate to disease. And if she doesn't take care of this now, the things that she may or may not fear, the things that she may have in her family history will reveal themselves. And here I put a list of the biggies that a lot of women are either concerned about or taking care of an aging parent with. This is also the time as she moves through menopause that her parents are aging and she may see some of these things in her own mother. And that could be motivating for her to understand that that's not her genetic destiny, that she actually has more control. And these are the typical ones: breast cancer, ovarian cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes. And then osteoporosis is a big one because most women are told that it's just genetic and that there's not a lot she can do. But in reality, there is a lot of things you can do to minimize osteoporosis. And this is my own family history. My mom has osteoporosis, and I'll show you where I feel strongly that I'm course correcting so I don't develop that as well. So let's dive into lifestyle. Lifestyle can make a really huge difference. And I really go down to 5 things I want women to understand. So the first is that she needs to know that I call it what you eat and when you eat. These are the biggest diet changes that she would be helpful for her to start to work on. And I'm going to break each one of these down. I go at 40, I was a 6 meal a day gal, and I ate breakfast on the way out the door. At 50, I'm a huge fan of fasting, and I found so much benefit in changing my eating window and my fasting window. So we'll talk about that in a moment. You can bring to her attention her microbiome. And there is a part of the microbiome called the estrobolome. If you're not familiar with it, make sure that you understand it, because this becomes incredibly important to the menopausal women. These are bacteria that their job is to break down estrogen. So we want to know, what does her microbiome look like? And I did a whole webinar for you guys on how I dive in to the microbiome with patients and the testing I use. So go watch that, because I can now do what we call a gut zoomer test. And I can run this test on her and I can tell her exactly if her estrobolome is in balance or not in balance. That's really helpful. Detoxing. Oh my gosh, detoxing gave me my sleep back. The TCD and prep body brain gave me my sleep back. I will go through this with you, but detoxing is a huge piece for women. Remember that toxins live in stored tissues. They live in your bones. They live in your muscles. They live in these tissues. And when you go through a perimenopause experience where the hormones are going up and down really dramatically, it's in that moment that it will force these toxins to come out of stored tissue. They go up into the brain, and there are 3 parts of the brain that are not protected: the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the pineal gland. So these parts of the brain are going to absorb these toxins and are going to throw off her sleep. They'll throw off all the rest of the hormones and create a worse menopause experience. If there was one of these 5 things that I would encourage you to dive into, you need to understand how to detox this woman because her toxic load is going to reveal itself through this menopause journey. And I am so grateful to Systemic Formulas for having the prep body and brain ready to go in this packaged formula that I can help these women with. Toxins is huge. And then the last thing is the rushing woman syndrome, is what I call it, or stress management. I'll dive into this deeper, but this was also a huge aha for me as I went through this experience, that I didn't realize that all that stress I had in 30 was going to catch up with me. And it goes back to those hormones I showed you, that if a woman is incredibly stressed out, her DHEA levels are going to be low. And then if her DHEA levels are low, she won't make progesterone and she won't make testosterone. And that's going to exacerbate her symptoms. So just know that this is the foundation of a lifestyle she needs to look at as she goes through menopause. And again, I'm going to dive into each one of these. So now, before I dive into that, I want to really go over something called a hormonal hierarchy. This was also a really important thing for me. It helped me put into perspective what I needed to work on. And I actually learned this from an interview that I did with Dr. Anna Cabeca. She's got some great books out there. One is called The Hormone Fix, and she's got a Keto Green book that's out now. So some of her information is really good to understand how hormones come into play. But what she and I spoke about was the fact that not all hormones are made equal, and hormones are a constant moving target. And what I love is that she uses the analogy that if you're looking at a university, oxytocin would be like the dean of the university, the president of the university. Cortisol would be like the department head. Insulin would be like the teacher, and sex hormones are the student. So oxytocin is a powerful hormone. It will control cortisol levels. And when you bring your cortisol levels down, you're going to have a better chance at controlling insulin. And when you control insulin, you're going to have a better chance at regulating your sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. What a lot of natural practitioners and even conventional doctors are doing is, with the menopausal woman, they are trying to manipulate the sex hormones either with medication or with herbs, but they are not addressing insulin, cortisol, and oxytocin. And you can be that practitioner that comes in and brings this to their attention and shows them, hey, guess what? We get to work on oxytocin. If we can build oxytocin up, then we can bring cortisol down. And when we bring cortisol down, you can work with insulin and work with your blood sugar in your diet. And then that's going to help us be able to normalize your sex hormones. So I really want you to understand that these 4 categories of hormones are so important for the menopausal woman. I dedicate a whole chapter on it in my book because it's that important. So if you want to understand more, again, go get the Menopause Reset book, and it's there, or give it. It's meant for the layperson, so you can give it to your menopausal woman as well. A couple of places that oxytocin was really helpful for me was insomnia was a big part of my menopausal experience. So if I had a stressful day and I got in bed and I could feel my heart pounding, I could feel that I was having like an adrenal reaction from my stressful day, something as simple as having my dog snuggle next to me and like petting my dog would actually calm me enough to go to sleep, because it would bring down cortisol. So petting an animal raises oxytocin. So touch in general will raise oxytocin. So oxytocin is a really fun hormone to work on. And if you can give her some ideas for raising oxytocin, she'll feel like she has some strategies for balancing cortisol. Okay, so I just want to point that out because it was such a valuable part of my experience. And oxytocin is really fun to make, to work on raising. So, okay, with that said, let's dive in to the menopause reset and the 5-step process that I encourage women to do. And it basically comes down to these categories. So you're looking at your fasting lifestyle, which I'll show you what I teach women. You're looking at variations of keto. So if you've heard a lot of women talk about how, oh, you shouldn't be doing the ketogenic diet, it's bad for women. I want to show you variations of it that make the ketogenic diet like the most amazing prescription for her weight loss issues. You got to look at her microbiome repair. You've got to look at how you're going to detox her. And then you've got to help her address the rushing woman syndrome. So those are the 5 pieces that I will work with a woman. I'm going to go through each piece and explain to you the high level of how I use this. I'll show you what systemic formulas, which supplements I use to support these 5. And then at the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you just run you through some general guidelines of like scenarios of how I put these 5 things together. So you can see how you would put what we call a multi-therapeutic approach, how you would put it together for the menopause woman. So, but know that these are the 5 things you're going to dive into with her. So number 1, a fasting lifestyle. Through extensive research, I've also been fortunate to study under Dr. Pompa for many years. I tell women, people in general, that there are 7 different types of fasts. And I have a whole bunch of videos on my YouTube channel you can go look at. But this is generally how I progress a woman through a fasting lifestyle. I start off by moving her breakfast back an hour. A lot of people, if they haven't been fasting, they need to know that let's just lean into it a little bit here, and let's just move your breakfast back an hour and see how you do well with that. Once they do really well with moving the breakfast back an hour, then I'll move them into a more traditional intermittent fasting at 13 to 15 hours. I let them get comfortable there. Then I'll teach them how to every once in a while throw in a dinner to dinner fast where she goes 24 hours. So I'll let her lean into that. I teach her autophagy fasting where we minimize her protein. Autophagy fasting is really powerful for insulin because you have to bring both your cortisol down and your insulin down, and you have to work on both protein and carbohydrates. So again, I'll explain a little bit of that. I've done a ton of videos on YouTube on autophagy fasting, so you can go look at that. A lot of women do great with Prolon, with fast mimicking diet. I'm so grateful to Dr. Shane for creating Catabol Shake, and we'll talk about that. I use Catabol Shake now as a tool to teach fast mimicking. I then will teach them how to do a 36-hour fast. I've taught some of my patients how to do dry fasting, which can really help with the parathyroid hormone and vitamin D production and osteoporosis. So for the menopausal woman, dry fasting can be really powerful. And then, of course, the 3 to 5 day water fasts. Based on your comfort level with fasting, these are the different fasts, the different tools that I will give women that are really helpful for her to start to bring insulin down. So one of the things we know about fasting is that it's a beautiful way to tap into the intelligence of the body so that the body will repair itself. It will go and find insulin and glucose that it stored years ago. And it's something she can do that doesn't cost any money. You just got to move her through these different phases because a lot of women in general might be a little new to this. Again, helpful supplements that I'm so grateful to have in my back pocket for people as I teach them how to fast. Thank you, Dr. Shane, for creating the extracellular ketone product That has been something that I've used to help a woman if she's struggling to go into a dinner to dinner fast per se. I will say, okay, at noon, if you're hungry, try taking some exogenous ketones and see if that pushes you and gives you a little more energy, shuts down hunger so you can get to a 24-hour fasted state. That has been miraculous. Love exogenous ketones. We don't lean into it all the time. I always am very clear to tell my patients, don't take it all the time. But when we're trying to train you to get into these longer fasts, exogenous ketones are great. If you have any patients that feel worse with fasting, we love Bind. We love Bind for everything, but Bind is great if somebody's getting a lot of brain fog, if they have a lot of rashes. Those kind of things can be incredible. Just take some Bind, and all of a sudden your fasting detox reactions will go away. So that's number one, fasting lifestyle. So the second thing you want to help her see is you want to help her know how to do keto variations. So you've probably heard a lot of keto that's not great for women. Well, she doesn't want to hop into a one meal a day lifestyle over and over and over again. This is not great for the perimenopause and menopausal woman. The postmenopausal woman may get away with it, but not the peri and the one in the middle of the thick of it. So an important question to ask her is, does she have a cycle or doesn't she have a cycle? If she doesn't have a cycle, the more typical ketogenic diet will be fine. For me, a typical ketogenic diet is keeping your carbohydrate load under 50 grams, keeping your protein under 50 grams, and trying to get 60% of your diet from good fat. If she has still a cycle, like she's 45, I mean, when I turned 43, I had all these symptoms and a very regular cycle, but I was exhibiting symptoms of menopause. So you're going to have a lot of these perimenopausal women. So if she has a cycle, or her cycle may be 45 days, it may be 60 days, it may be once a month, or I'm sorry, once every a quarter, like every 90 days, then you're going to want to teach her something called the 28-day hormone reset. And this is actually quite simple. What this looks like is that you want to have her track her cycle. So if I tell people to get the Clue app. That's the app that I recommend on their phone, and just start tracking it. So from days 1 through day 11, she can do keto and fasting, no problem. She can go into very low keto. She can do a block fast. Those are great days to do fasting. But now when she moves into day 12 and 14, her body is going to upregulate and try to make some more estrogen. Now, remember, the menopausal woman has low estrogen already. So as the body's trying to make more estrogen, we want to help support her body's ability to make that. And being in a ketogenic state does not help her. So I tell women that you want to lean into estrogen building foods. Now, or even just hormone building foods. So beans can be good. Some fruits can be good at this time. You don't want her glucose to go too low. Other estrogen building foods on these days are a little more ketogenic, like all the seeds and the nuts, organic soybeans. Those kind of things can help build the good estrogens, but do them during these days. And I map that all out in my book. Day 15 through day 21, she can go back into a ketogenic state, no problem. Day 21 through day 28, now you want her to lean into the progesterone building foods again. So beans, squashes, potatoes, tropical fruits, citrus fruits, those would be good for her to eat so that she can build up progesterone. When I first did my Dutch test, I was 47 years old, and I showed that I had the hormone levels that were worse than a postmenopausal woman. but I was 47, still having a normal cycle. But I had a tremendous amount of anxiety. I couldn't relax in my own skin. So I was doing a lot of keto and fasting at that time. I moved to this formula that I just showed you here. So when I moved to that formula, all of a sudden my premenstrual symptoms became better. I wasn't as anxious. I stopped spotting as much. I was having really heavy periods. That all ended. This protocol really worked. So this is something that is incredibly beneficial to teach her. Now, if you get to day 28 and she still doesn't have a cycle, she can either continue on the progesterone building foods. If anxiety is high, she can continue on that. Or if she's really nervous about losing weight and she wants to go back into a keto and fasting lifestyle, you can have her go back to day 1 and follow the whole protocol again. I find that women that have very sporadic cycles, but also want to lose weight, I just keep having them repeat this 28-day hormone reset over and over again. So here's an example of what. So know that. I want to put that out there first. Now, what if somebody has no cycle? She's a postmenopausal woman. In that case, I really educate what I call a 5-1-1 variation. With 5-1-1, what you're trying to help her do is not completely tank her hormones. She's postmenopausal. She doesn't have a lot already. So you don't want her to completely tank her hormones, but you want her to get the benefits of fasting and of keto. So with the person with no cycle or the postmenopausal woman, 5 days a week, she'll do keto and fasting. Doesn't matter what days those are. 1 day a week, she'll do a longer fast. Dinner to dinner is great. She can do some of those exogenous ketones if she wants. And then she can have a keto day, a dinner. And then 1 day a week, I want her to not fast and I want her to build those hormones up. I want to pull her out of ketosis. And I tell her that the purpose is to pull you out of ketosis. And that has been incredibly helpful. So know that formula works really well for the woman who has no cycle, wants to lose weight, but also is, really trying to manage her hormones. So that's a really good, just general one. Or you can have her follow the 28-day hormone reset. I give you 2 examples there. Okay. Products that can be helpful for the keto diet. I love Catabol Shake. If you haven't looked at Catabol Shake or used it, birthday cake. It tastes to me like vanilla birthday cake. I love the taste of it. And a lot of times women that are trying to stay in ketosis don't know what to eat because a lot of people get kind of frazzled about counting macros. I'll have them just replace 1 meal a day with Catabol Shake. So an example of that would be, I'll tell them to intermittent fast for 15 hours and then have their lunch, but have it with Catabol Shake. You can mix it with like a non-sweetened coconut milk. That's how I like to do it. You can have her put an avocado in it, put some MCT oil in it. But again, Dr. Shane was brilliant. And if you haven't looked at the ingredients of Catabol Shake, you really need to look at them because he put some good fats in there that we just aren't going to get access to, like fats from chia seeds. Like I'm not going to compress enough chia seeds or eat enough chia seeds to get the good fats from chia seeds. But Dr. Shane found a formula that's going to help us get those good fats. So when you're first teaching the menopausal woman about regulating insulin, Catabol Shake is a great tool to have her replace 1 meal with. That way she doesn't have to think about too hard about what she's going to eat. I would have her replace lunch with Catabol Shake and then do dinner with, it can be as simple as some protein and some vegetables. Now you've given her tools to lose weight and manage insulin. So I really love Catabol Shake. Okay. Step number 3, Microbiome repair. Okay, so we've got her fasting. We've taught her how to do some variations with keto. Now let's teach her how to repair her microbiome. And I did a whole webinar on this for you guys. I love testing it. I love teaching people about fermented foods. If you guys know Dr. Sarika, she has a whole awesome book called The Funky Kitchen. You can get the recipes on how to make sauerkraut. But I really teach my patients, especially the menopausal woman, how to eat polyphenol foods, probiotic foods, and prebiotic foods. My favorite phrase is I say, think of it like you have a little pet inside of you, and that pet is going to produce neurotransmitters that calm you and bring joy and support your immune system. But you got to feed that pet to keep it alive. And you feed it by giving it polyphenol foods, prebiotic foods, and probiotic foods. So I really emphasized the food component. Now, having said that, we have an incredible, or Systemic has an incredible line of gut repair supplements that I have leaned into multiple times. When I first started using Systemic formulas, supplements, I loved the boxes. The boxes were great. So I would just give somebody a GI wellness box and say, follow this, do this for, a month, or sometimes I would do it for 60 days. So it was a great way for me to get the power of Systemic formulas before I really understood how all the formulas work. Now that I understand more, I really often will do the three that you see up here. I will put a menopausal woman on MBC. I will give her L-Gut to seal off a leaky gut. And then if you're not familiar with their enzymes are incredibly powerful because each one is for a different type of food. Like Malay is for protein, to help somebody break down protein. So if you have a patient that says, "Oh, I'm really bloated when I eat a steak or I eat protein," you'll have them use Malay. Well, and Z is made specifically to break carbohydrates down. So this little trio up here can be incredibly helpful for somebody who's trying to balance insulin. So I go back to this is how I would put it together in a protocol, is I would teach them intermittent fasting. I could start by giving them a keto variation where they break their fast with Catabol Shake and then they eat a keto meal. And then I would move to these three supplements or the box of GI wellness so I could be working on their gut. And now you've handled three in a very simple way. You've given them 3 out of the 5 things they need to do so that they can get their insulin and their hormones under control. The other amazing product, if you have not experienced this product, and if you're a menopausal woman, I would rush out and order Femicrine, because Dr. Shane, my understanding is Dr. Shane and Dr. Pompa put this product together, and this is a gift to all menopausal women. I don't know if they realize that when they put it together, but we had a joke going amongst the holistic doctors that all use Systemic formulas. We used to say that friends don't let friends get off Femicrine, because Femicrine is so good at just calming the hormones down. There's several things in Femicrine that are phenomenal. One thing is that it makes sensitive to estrogen and progesterone. And the menopausal woman already is struggling with estrogen and progesterone. She doesn't have enough. So let's make those receptor sites more sensitive. That's awesome. Thank you, Dr. Pompa and Dr. Shane. The other thing that we know is that in Femicrine is that it has Lactobacillus rhamnosus and Lactobacillus reuteri. These are 2 parts of the estrobolome that help you break down estrogen. L. reuteri has been known to help with depression and anxiety. So if you get a gut zoomer test back and it shows that she doesn't have a good estrogen balance, this is a great product for that. If you have an anxious menopausal woman, this is an amazing product. Please put her on it because she will thrive. Okay, step number 4, detox. So this is crucial. Those first 3 steps are going to be a wonderful way to give her some tools that are going to make her feel amazing in a short-term time frame. Detoxing is what is going to help her in the long term. So what I often do is work with those first 3 steps first, and then I move her into detoxing. Again, I go back to toxins are most likely sitting in her hypothalamus and her pituitary and her pineal gland. They are throwing off her hormones, and most importantly, they are throwing off her sleep. So the detox, the prep body and brain, I use these when a menopausal woman tells me she can't sleep, she's losing her memory, she has brain fog, chronic pain. So lead lives in our bones and will often come out during menopause and will start to create chronic pain scenarios. If you're a chiropractor, you might be adjusting this woman over and over and over again, and you might find that your adjustments aren't doing anything for her pain. That can be a detox that she needs to step into. So please learn about True Cellular Detox. Please learn about prep body and brain. This gave me my life back. This is such an important part of helping this woman mitigate her symptoms. And we have a lot of resources through Systemic to go through how to do these 3 phases. I would really encourage you to dive in and learn these principles of detox because they are an absolute gift to the menopausal woman. So I won't go into detail on that, but that's step 4. Okay, step 5. So you have done the fasting lifestyle, you have done keto variations, you have helped her with her menopause or her microbiome. Now you got her detoxing. This could be the missing piece. And there's something that I learned from a woman. I've quoted this woman before, and I give her so much credit for she doesn't even know she changed my life. But it's an incredible book called Rushing Woman Syndrome. Her name is Dr. Libby Weaver. She has a TED Talk. You can buy her book. I would really encourage you to dive into her studies. But the idea is that since the ovaries are no longer working, that they hand over their job of building sex hormones to the adrenal glands. For the rushing woman, those adrenals are shot, and she needs to support the adrenals. So you can give her mindfulness tools. You can teach her how to say no. It becomes more important in her late 40s and beyond to say no to things so she can have more balance in her life. We've used tools like Brain Tap to teach her how to train her prefrontal cortex. We know that the chiropractic adjustment will improve 30% blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. So there's not just a one thing that's going to dramatically change her rushing lifestyle, but you have to bring to her attention that it's time to start to balance it because it will make a difference in how her hormones play out. Now, having said all of that, I have to give credit I learned the next systemic formulas trick on strengthening your parasympathetic nervous system. I learned this from Dr. Hank Williams. These 2 supplements have also been a game changer for me. Putting HQ and N nerve together helps to strengthen this woman's parasympathetic nervous system. I have used this when I know I'm going into a time of stress. I know I'm a menopausal woman. I know the rushing life isn't great for me, but I'm going to know I'm going to be rushing. So I will use these 2 supplements, and if you give her these 2 supplements along with Femicrine, you can calm a menopausal woman down like nobody's business. So I will use these at times of stress to just give me that extra edge to be able to calm my nervous system. So I just had to put that out there for you guys because it was such a gift. Okay, having said all of that, let me give you some examples real quickly on how I put this all together. So, example number one, let's say you have a woman that comes into your office. She is in her menopause years, but maybe she doesn't really know she's in her menopause years. She hasn't really done much with her diet. And maybe you know her toxic load is high. Maybe you know she's got a lot of anxiety. She's not sleeping. This would kind of be a basic example of how I use all 5 of these strategies. I would have her move her breakfast back an hour. I would have her start by pulling out refined sugars and processed foods. And I would have her replace one of her meals a day with a Catabol Shake. I would have her start counting how many plants she actually is eating. So plant diversity matters. We came up with something in my resetter group called Plant Diversity Score. I have a patient count how many different plants she's getting in a week's time. And then she has to give me the score. I want to know how many different plants she got because it's the diversity of plants that make a difference in feeding the good microbiome. I would start her immediately on TCD. So the detox, the true cellular detox. Prep phase can make this woman feel incredible. Prep phase is a builder upper. It can give her some energy back, especially if she's, exhausted but anxious, not sleeping. TCD is really powerful for giving energy back. And then the 5th one is put her on HQ and N nerve so that she can start to feel calm again. This would be a really good protocol that you could just take and immediately do with a menopausal woman. Perimenopause, in the middle, or post. Really good basic start. Second example I'll give you that you can do with her is you can maybe then move her to a place where she's now doing 13 to 15 hours a day of intermittent fasting. Maybe you get her 1 day a week doing a dinner fast. Maybe you have her learn that she can come out of a fast and be okay. So this 5-1-1 variation can be really helpful if somebody wants to learn a fasting lifestyle. So start by now teaching her that. Then you could teach her how to do 1 whole day of Catabol Shake. Maybe she does 2 or 3 Catabol Shakes. So 1 day she's doing that. Maybe you teach her how to do some hormone building like I taught you. Then you could move, she's been counting her plants. Maybe now you can move her into, here are prebiotic foods. Here are polyphenol. And put her on Femicrine. Then it's maybe she's time to move her into the body phase and start pulling toxins out of the body. And maybe you get her off HQ and N nerve. And now you want to just teach her scheduled downtime. Like for me, I started making Friday afternoons and Sunday mornings. It was my total downtime. I didn't schedule anything on those afternoons. So maybe that's the next level of the rushing woman that you're going to move her into. And then the third example that I've used with women, and this could be a progression that you do. You could start the first month off with my example number 1. Then you can move her to example number 2. With example number 3, you can move her into a little more fancy fasting. You can move her into autophagy fasting. If you're not familiar with that, you can go watch the videos on my YouTube page. I've done a ton on autophagy fasting. Now maybe you lean in a little more to Catabol Shake, and you have her, do maybe a Catabol Shake fast. Maybe she does 2-3 days of only Catabol Shake. We've done that a lot. If you wanted to it's a 5-day. Prolon is a 5-day eating style. You could have her do Catabol shakes for 5 days to help her secrete some stem cells. So there's protocols for doing that, and resources to do that. Then you would move her into, maybe now we dive really deep into her gut, and you have her do the whole GI wellness protocol. And now you keep her on TCD. She's probably in brain phase. If you followed this now, you've been doing the third month is this. You are maybe now moving her into brain phase, and then tell her how to scan her beauty products and look for toxic sources she may be getting in her body. And then now she's been on HQ and N nerve. You've helped her upregulate her parasympathetic nervous system. You've got her scheduling downtime. Now really encourage her to go to bed an hour earlier so she can get more sleep. So these are 3 examples you could use independently, or you could actually progress her through those 3. So I wanted you to know how to put it all together. So there you go. And with my final thoughts on the topic of menopause, I would tell you to keep these things in mind. First, help her understand that at 40, she should have started changing her lifestyle, and help normalize this process for her. If you're dealing with a 60-year-old postmenopausal woman, just reiterate, somebody should have taught you how to change your lifestyle at 40. That didn't happen. I'm going to teach you now. If she's in her mid 40s or early 40s, emphasize how important it is to put these 5 steps into effect as she moves through this process. That leads me to the second thing is you're going to map out the 5-step process for her, just like I showed you in the example. Third thing, when you go to map out this process, decide what you're targeting each time and let her know. Like in example number 1, we were just targeting helping you build a fasting lifestyle and helping build up your parasympathetic. That's what we're going to target for this month. In the second example, we started to target her microbiome a little more. We started to detox her a little more. In the third month, we started to target more of a detox, getting really deep into detox, and we really went much deeper into her microbiome. What I love about systemic formulas is that they are meant to be cycling these supplements, and it helps you and the patient come together and see that this isn't a one pill, one cure situation. This isn't like, I'm going to put you on the ketogenic diet and all your problems are going to go away. This is something that we're going to need to work together with over months, so until you've built yourself an amazing lifestyle. That keeps you engaged in her experience. That helps her see that she needs to constantly be changing. So leads me to my fourth thing, which is always make sure that you are cycling these supplements. They work best that way. And then the last thing is have a measurement for her. Maybe your measurement is her symptoms. Maybe your measurement is a Dutch test. I know we use a neurotoxic questionnaire that it can be helpful. Maybe you have another questionnaire, but for the menopausal woman, it can be so overwhelming. There's so much going on for her that sometimes having a measurement of a test can be incredibly helpful and an incredible gift to her. But, and I also want to emphasize and I'll end on this note, is that it's a process. Your hormones are a moving target. So we need to have these 5 things that we're working on at all times so that we can adjust and adapt as your hormones are changing, as your stress levels are changing, as your diet is changing. Let's always come back to these 5 things and let's work on these 5 things. So it gives her some framework. So with that, you guys have an incredible opportunity to help this woman. Please, this is why I put it in a book format. This is why when Systemic asked me what I wanted to teach, I was like, I have to teach on this because this genre of woman is lost. She needs resources. And so many women don't want to go on HRT. So many women don't want to do bioidenticals. and they don't have a place to go, and you can be that place. So follow those 5 steps. Get her my book, you get my book, get her the products. However it works best for you is what I want to support. But know that this is a group of women that need you, and they need you to understand. They need you to walk this walk with them, because it is one that is more difficult than anything they may have ever experienced. So with that, I hope that helps. Reach out. I'm always in the Facebook group. You can tag me if you have any questions. But as always, I hope that helps.